Cooper, what's going on, brother? How are you?
I'm good, bro. I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. Those of you watching along, this is Cooper. He used to be a chippy for 4 or 5 years, I believe. 4 years.
Yep.
Yeah, man. So tell us a bit about that.
Yeah, bro. So 4 years, I dropped out of school when I was 17 to start a carpentry apprenticeship just because didn't really like school, wasn't really paying attention or anything like that. Like it was pretty much just a waste of time. So, parents said drop out, get a trade, at least to start, making the most of my time, make a bit of money young. Was doing that for 3.5 years. So I was coming towards the back end of my apprenticeship. And yeah, towards when I just turned 21, was when I decided to make a change. And yeah, from there was able to finish those 4 years up and then get off the tools.
Yeah, for sure, brother, for sure. Over those 3.5 years you mentioned in your apprenticeship, what was that like for you, bro?
Yeah, so initially, like the first like year or two, I was loving it, like doing something new, being outside, being with the boys. I thought it was way better than school. Actually, although like the wages were fucked, like I actually had a bit of money in my pocket, like because I think previously I was working at a restaurant or something, just doing dishes, so I was making like $100 a week. So I thought I was a millionaire with 500-600 bucks a week in my pocket. So yeah, the first year or two we're good. But I guess the longer the apprenticeship went on, the closer I got to being qualified, the more I realized long term, it was never really a plan to do it long term in the first place. It was just what else do I do? And then the older I got, the closer I got towards being finished. I sort of reached a breaking point where I was like, fuck, like what I've actually achieved over the last 4 years, it sort of has been a waste. I haven't got a lot of money. Especially being a chippy, like you got to buy tools, you got to buy a car. And when I looked back on like the years of 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, all my memory was just staring at timber frames. It was like, that's not really the way that I planned or envisioned growing up. I always thought being in my 20s, being like just becoming an adult would be full of just, memories. And it's like all I did was work for 4 years. So once I started to realize that went on for like a year or two. And then it was around, April last year where I was like, fuck, like, something's got to give here. I don't want to do this forever.
Yeah, for sure, brother. Coming to that point where you realize, you wanted to make a change, you didn't want to do it forever. What kind of was the tipping point to make you want to make that change?
Yeah, so as I said, it was like 6 months. I was about 3.5 years into my apprenticeship. And so the closer it was getting, the more I was like realizing like, fuck, like I'm about to be qualified here. Because like for those like 3.5 years before, that's all you're like aiming for. You're like, I just want to get qualified. And then it was like getting closer and closer to being qualified. And I was like looking back on those years, and I was like, I've wasted a lot of time. I've also seen like the older guys on site and like hearing they're like, go travel. They're like telling you to go travel, go like, experience the world. Don't just be stuck doing this shit for your whole life. It's shit. And it's like you hear that like every day and it builds up over time. And yeah, the 4 years was coming up and I'd been seeing stuff online for like 6 months and I always thought it was like a load of shit. But like the closer, like the more things built up, the closer I got to actually finishing the apprenticeship, the more I'd see, the more I'd like get jealous. That's sort of what it was just like a whole bunch of things. Having no time, older guys on site, that sort of just compounded over time until I guess like I reached a breaking point where I was like actually started to hate what I was doing every day. And just dread getting out of bed every morning. It just felt like I'd just been doing the same shit on repeat for years.
Yeah, 100%, bro. It was the exact same for me. Yeah, that's kind of where you've come from, bro. What's life kind of look like for you now?
Yeah, so life now is very different. It wasn't obviously it didn't just I just started I'm gonna make money online and then the next day I'd quit my job. It was a bit of a journey. So yeah, it was around April last year where I bit the bullet and just said, what have I got to lose really? Like I, I can at least give it a shot, or I can not and just be like always wondering like what if. So yeah, it was around April last year. First 3 months. didn't make any money. That killed my confidence. That I was like, about to give up. It was, it was pretty tough, like putting work into something consistently and not actually getting anything out of it, really. Although, like I did, like you learn and stuff, but in the moment, you're like, is this going to work out? But yeah, around 3 months in, I landed my first appointment setting role. A couple of weeks later, made my first bit of money. And then yeah, the next month I replaced my income. And the month after that, made a bit more money. And that's yeah, around 4.5 months in was when I was in a position to leave my job. Um, and then yes, since then, yeah, life's been it's cliche. And but like some mornings I still have to get out of bed and pinch myself that it's all real. But literally like everything that I could have dreamt of as just like, that's pretty much the reality I'm living. And it feels so crazy to even say. But just traveling, not really having to worry about money, meeting new people, visiting countries that I never thought I'd ever get to experience. And that's been 9 months now, 9 months since I quit my job. And yeah, it's just been a big party, really. And it's been awesome.
Crazy, bro, crazy. I mean, obviously, that transition from being a tradie on the tools for 5 days a week or whatever it was, and then that transition into the online space. How did you kind of, manage your time to be working on both? Obviously, you still had to rock up to work,
Yeah.
and you couldn't just quit straight away. So how did you sort of manage your time to get to that position?
Yeah, good question. And it was really tough. Like, because as you said, like I still got to pay the bills, still got to make money. So I was working 10 hours a day, still wanted to keep fit. So you go to the gym, then you come home and cook, and there's not a lot of time there. I think I think the biggest thing for me was just always like looking at like what the alternative was. If I don't do this, if I don't go home and do, an hour or two, and that happens continuously, where's that going to leave me in 5 years and 10 years? Like I became so discontent with where I was that, it just became a routine. I think that's like a big thing as well. Like obviously the first like 2 or 3 weeks where I just started was like really hard. But once it just becomes like an everyday thing, like going to the gym, at 8 o'clock I get home, I do a bit of work, I learn some new skills. It just became like a routinely thing. I think another big one as well was the I sacrificed a lot of time on weekends to get ahead. So, previously life for 4 years was just going out drinking, partying, doing drugs, like being a fuckwit. So even like when I first started, I was still doing that, and then I was like, you get to Monday, Tuesday, you're burnt out. So I sort of looked at that as well. I was like, if I keep doing this, where's that going to leave me? So sort of a few sacrifices that had to be made, with like the bigger picture in mind. So I was like, if I sacrifice this for 6 months, where will I actually be in 6 months compared to if I don't? And that's pretty much always the way I looked at it. It was like 6 months from now, what would the difference be? Um, so yeah, at the end of the day, like there's time. There's 24 hours in a day. If you have to sleep an hour later, if you have to get up an hour early, if you have to, not go out and be a fuckwit on the weekends so you can um, get a bit more work in, then, there's always time. I think that's at the end of the day, it is just an excuse when people say that they don't have time.
Yeah, 100%, bro. It's just about prioritizing your time and, like you said, making some sacrifices. I mean, obviously, that's a bit how you kind of, made that transition. I know we've just got back from Lombok, and like before that, I didn't know you from a bar of soap, and I wouldn't know you if we, didn't get into the online space. But yeah, what's some things that you've been able to achieve over the past, 9 months since you quit your job?
Yeah, yeah. So honestly, like, you can flex money, you can flex like everything, but the biggest flex for me is the freedom. I get to wake up on a Wednesday whenever I want. I get to travel on a Monday. So that's been the biggest thing for me. It's always been travel. I've always wanted to travel. And obviously it just wasn't possible when I was a carpenter. But yeah, pretty much the last 9 months, just, doing a bit of work in the mornings, getting to travel. So I think I've been to Bali like 3 or 4 times, which, is the Aussie dream, just being able to live in Bali. Been to Thailand, Dubai. I think over the last 9 months, I've more than 3x'd what I would make in 1 year as a chippy. I was making around 50 grand a year as a chippy. And then in the last 9 months, I've more than three, almost 4x that, which, as I said, just doesn't feel real. So that's always nice. Just not having to worry about that side of things though, because I was always worried about money and falling behind and things like that. Um, but yeah, just pretty much catching up for lost time, I feel like is the biggest thing that's important to me is, I feel like I'm catching my tail from the 4 years I sort of wasted. But at the end of the day, only 22. So I got a lot of time left.
Yeah, 100%, bro. I mean, it looks to me like your life has, completely turned on its head, from obviously being a tradie, going out partying all the time, fixed up your habits and whatnot. To conclude things, bro, what would be one piece of advice you would give to someone that is kind of on the fence, looking at getting into the space, but they're a little bit fearful?
Good question. One piece of advice I would give, probably the biggest piece of advice I could give to myself this time last year, who was fearful and almost didn't go ahead with it, is just do it. Like, just do it. Like, it sounds so simple, but as I said before, like it scares me that I almost didn't go ahead with it. It's like you don't actually understand how much you could be costing yourself by doing nothing. So, all this, all the money, the experiences, the travel, that's what I would have costed myself if I didn't get started. Just by, one decision could have gone either way. And by not doing it, it would have costed myself a lot of money, but more importantly to me, the freedom and the experiences and the people I've met. So just do it. Take risks while you're young. You don't want to wait till you're 30 and then realize, holy fuck, I've still got 30 more years of this, and you've got a kid and a wife and a mortgage, and you're not in a position to take risks. I would take risks while you're young, because at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter. And also, it doesn't really matter, but also always look at the what if it does work. So yes, you might lose some money, or you might lose, a bit of confidence, or something might happen, but you also learn from that as well for the next time. So the next time it gets better. So biggest thing is just say pretty much just fuck it. Take as many risks as you can while you're young, and fucking just enjoy it. Enjoy life for what it is. You got, 70 years on the rock, maybe 80 if you're not a degenerate. But yeah, just fuck, fuck, just looking at timber frames for the next 50 or 60 years. So much more out there.
100%, bro. No, anyway, brother, I appreciate your time. I know you're a busy boy, so I'll let you get back to it. But yeah, cheers, brother.
No worries at all. See you guys.
Catch you.